You know that feeling, right? You're just going about your day and then you feel it. A small, unexpected bump under your skin, and your mind just starts racing. What is that? Is it something I should worry about? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most common causes of those mysterious bumps, cysts.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say pretty much all of us have been there. It's that moment of discovery that can send you right down an internet rabbit hole, isn't it? But more often than not, what you found is a cyst. So, what does that word actually mean? Let's break it down.
At its most basic, a cyst is just a closed-off pocket of tissue, and it can be filled with all sorts of things, fluid, air, or other gunk. The key thing to remember is that it's a self-contained little package. I love this analogy. Think of it like a tiny, sealed biological balloon hiding out just under your skin. They can pop up almost anywhere. And here's the good news. Most of the time, they are completely harmless.
Now, cysts is a huge umbrella term. It covers a whole bunch of different kinds of bumps. So to really get a handle on this, let's go on a quick tour of the usual suspects, the most common types you're likely to run into. Think of it as a rapid-fire field guide. First up, we've got the epidermoid cyst. These are super common. They're basically little pockets filled up with keratin, the same protein that makes up your hair and nails. They usually form when some skin cells get trapped where they don't belong, maybe from a blocked hair follicle, and they look like a little yellowish or skin-colored bump.
Next, let's talk about the pilar cyst. Now, this one's very similar to the epidermoid cyst. It's also caused by a buildup of that same protein in a hair follicle. So what's the difference? Location, location, location. Something like 90% of these show up on the scalp. So if you've ever found a smooth, firm little bump on your head, chances are it was one of these guys. Okay, let's switch locations now and move to our joints. Ever heard of a ganglion cyst? It's this round, gel-filled lump that loves to hang out in your tendons, especially on wrists and hands. And here's the funny thing. The exact cause is often a total mystery. Sometimes it's linked to an old injury or just overuse, but other times, they just appear. Sticking with joints, let's head down to the knee. A Baker's cyst is a very specific fluid-filled sac that forms right at the back of the knee. Now, this one isn't just a random occurrence. It's usually a sign of an underlying problem, like arthritis or maybe a cartilage tear, and it can actually cause some pain and tightness.
And to round out our little tour, we have the pilonidal cyst. This one has a very specific address, right in the crease at the top of the buttocks. It usually develops after puberty and is thought to be caused by a mix of things: friction from sitting, hormones, and loose hairs getting trapped under the skin.
So, we've met some of the biggest names in the cyst world, but here's where things get a little tricky. See, not every bump that looks like a cyst actually is one. It's really important to know the difference between a true cyst and something that just looks like one, what we often call a pseudocyst. So what's the one thing that separates them? It all comes down to the lining. A true cyst is defined by having its own special wall or sac made of tissue. That's our biological balloon we talked about. A pseudocyst, on the other hand, is just a collection of fluid or pus that doesn't have that special self-contained lining. And believe me, that distinction makes all the difference when it comes to treatment.
Let's make this crystal clear with some examples you probably know. You know that deep, painful pimple people call cystic acne? Technically, that's a pseudocyst. It's just a really deeply clogged pore, not a self-contained sac. Same goes for a chalazion, that little lump you can get on your eyelid from a blocked oil gland. Or even folliculitis, which might look like an ingrown hair cyst, but is really just an infected follicle. No distinct lining, not a true cyst.
Okay, so we know what they are and what they aren't. But that leads to the big question, right? Why do our bodies even create these things in the first place? Well, the answer really depends on which type of cyst we're talking about, but there are definitely some common culprits.
The reasons can vary a lot, but cysts often pop up in response to some kind of trigger. Simple blockages are a huge one: a clogged oil gland, a blocked duct, a hair follicle that's gone haywire. Infections can definitely kickstart the process, and so can the body's reaction to long-term inflammation. Sometimes it's just in your genes, and as we saw with some of the joint cysts, even a simple injury can be the starting point.
All right, we've covered the what, the where, and the why. So now let's get down to the really practical stuff. What should you actually do if you find one of these bumps on yourself?
There are a few things to keep in mind, for sure, but there is one golden, absolutely unbreakable rule. Before you even think about doing anything else, what is the number one thing you need to know?
This, right here. I absolutely cannot stress this enough. Whatever you do, resist the urge to squeeze it.
Trying to pop a cyst yourself is a genuinely terrible idea. Remember that sac we talked about? You can easily rupture it under the skin, pushing all that stuff deeper, which can cause a nasty infection and even lead to permanent scarring. This is a job for a professional, period.
So when should you actually make that call to a doctor? You should definitely go if the cyst is painful, if it looks all red and angry, or if you notice it's getting bigger. But honestly, even if it's not bothering you at all, getting it checked out just for your own peace of mind is always a smart move.
Okay, so let's say you do go to the doctor. What can you expect? How do they actually deal with these things? Well, there are a few standard ways a professional might handle it.
For a simple cyst, a doctor might just drain it with a needle. It's quick, but the catch is, it might come back. If it's really inflamed, an injection of a corticosteroid can help calm things down. But for a cyst that keeps coming back or causing problems, the best long-term solution is surgical removal. And here's the key. They take out the entire sac. That's the only way to make sure it won't just fill right back up again.
Now, you're probably wondering, can I prevent these things from happening? Well, for most types, the answer is not really. They're often tied to things happening inside your body. But there are a few exceptions. Good hygiene can make a real difference. Keeping your eyelids clean can help prevent those chalasia, and keeping the skin at the base of your spine clean and dry can help you avoid pilonidal cysts.
So let's bring this all home with the single most important takeaway. Finding a new lump or bump can feel pretty scary. I get it. But it is so important to remember this. The overwhelming, vast majority of cysts are benign. That means they are not cancerous, and in most cases, they don't cause any serious or long-term issues. They're usually just more of a nuisance than an actual danger.
When you think about it, finding a bump is a perfect example of your body sending you a little signal. It's a reminder to just pay attention, to be aware of what's going on. Because while a cyst is usually harmless, being in tune with the changes in your own body, well, that's always the first and most important step to staying healthy.